110, take 5, early mark.
And action. What Goes Up is about a newspaper writer played by Steve Coogan in New York City who's challenged when it comes to telling the truth. He just had written an article about this woman in New York, a local hero, that he had fallen in love with. She then commits suicide after the article comes out. He doesn't tell anybody and actually goes on and writes about her as if she were still alive, which completely shatters journalistic ethics. And he's sent to cover the hometown hoopla for local hero up in New Hampshire, Kristen McCullough. This takes place in 1986, just a few days before the Challenger shuttle disaster happens. And the experience of being surrounded by this, world of confetti and hip hip hooray and red, white, and blue completely leaves him cold. But then he encounters this group of kids who cut through the red, white, and blue with this swath of black. They're mourning the death of their own hero, their own teacher, and he feels a kinship with them and basically drops the local hero story that he was sent there to cover and follows them and enters into their world.
I once said his name 3 times and it started to rain. I swear to God. Can you put that in your story?
Of course I can.
We saw his face in a cloud. He was smiling.
Perfect.
I co-wrote the script with Bob Lawson, and he was on set and writing things when I was directing, doing little rewrites and things like that. So I was very fortunate to not have to put the writer hat back on. I like working with others. I like collaborating with others. It's essentially a collaborative medium. You can't do it alone. Antonio Calvache, our cinematographer, is a brilliant guy who worked on Little Children and In the Bedroom. And there were people in Vancouver who came onto the crew because of Antonio, because they wanted to work with him. When Steve Coogan read the script, I think he saw a lot of himself in Campbell Babbitt.
This one was very interesting and intelligent and subtle, and also kind of in some ways a little bit dangerous, sort of fraught with risk, because it's about sexuality and middle age and adolescence and loss, and quite complex and quite ambitious.
He's so sharp, and he's able to take his understanding, an intellectual understanding of a character or of a story, and physicalize it. Actors talk about their instrument and knowing how to play their instrument as a pianist might. And he's a virtuoso. Lucy is kind of the queen of this group. She's beautiful, and she's very seductive, particularly around adult men.
She's not as mature as she makes everyone think. That game to her is romantic, of making everyone think that she's kind of this person, and she is in a way, but she isn't. And I kind of feel like that with my life sometimes.
She's so quick to judge the moment at hand for her character. She very rarely needed more than one take. We were so severely limited by time that, especially with Hillary doing a role that was fairly different than things that she's done before, I was worried. And those worries were completely dismissed, evaporated as soon as we got to set. When Olivia Thirlby auditioned for us, we were so blown away, and it was one of these moments where, done, she's it. You give your heart over to Tess in this movie, but you know that she's going to probably damp on it with her pet Benatar boots. And that's why Tess is just so beguiling.
She really does act out of a righteous place. You know, she doesn't realize that that just because she's experienced something to happen a certain way, it doesn't mean that that's the way it happens every time in every situation.
Josh Peck is, also an actor who has done a lot of comedy and is able to make his part so bittersweet and so multi-layered.
Every character has an intense need, and for Jim, his need is to be vindicated and validated by these people. And the whole time he's just yearning for Lucy especially, but anyone, to give this kid a freaking hug.
Well, Molly Shannon is Penelope, who's a school marm, music teacher, the butt of a lot of the jokes in the movie. She's got a lightness, she brings a kind of sadness to it, but in a very, very funny way.
If you can really tell a story from your heart, or create a character from your heart, or tell a story from your heart, it's really great because people do respond to that. You can't think, what do people want? If you just really tell your own story that's inside of you, it's amazing what can come from that simple thing.
I used to have this room. Sam used to visit me here. I'm sorry. It's just so hard to take it sometimes.
Oh. That's hard.
Thank you.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Oh.
I need a hug.
Oh dear.
I think that with each passing day, the craziness that surrounded the business of filmmaking is growing more and more faint. And what's left is, in fact, the edifice that we all built together, all the cast, myself, my partners. I'll always be able to talk about how crazy things were on set, and let alone pre-production and post-production for that matter. But those things are going to just be stories. In film, the only thing that matters is what the camera captures, and what we captured was some great stuff.